So the size of this box is actually pretty crazy. You can get a sense of the scale here because as you can see, it's completely covering my diorama. So the box of King Cold is a lot bigger than anyone anticipated, even the stores that were selling them, because they started sending out shipping invoices, extra shipping because they miscalculated the shipping cost due to the size of this box once they got it in the store. Yeah, it's a hefty guy, and the reason why it's so hefty is because of the throne. The throne makes this box deep, as you can see. It's pretty deep, and if it wasn't for the throne, you would probably get a box the size of Birder. You know, like the Birder release that came in a pretty sizable box, but it was just a figure, so you know, it wasn't a big deal. But this thing is massive. So we're gonna get it open. We're gonna check them out. I have been awaiting the release of this figure for a long time. Didn't think we would get him, but at this point in the line of Figuarts, how long it's been running, over 10 years, I figured we would get him eventually. So it did take over 10 years, over a decade to get King Cold in S.H.Figuarts, but here he is. And man, he looks good. So he does come in two clamshells that stack on top of each other. This is the bottom clamshell that has his cape and all of his accessories of alternate heads and hands and tail, and the cross arms and the sword. The top layer clamshell has the throne and the figure itself, of course. So I got him about almost 9 inches tall to the top of his head. And the top of his horn, he is a little bit over 9.5 inches tall. There he is next to the throne. Throne is very sizable too. It's like a soft plastic. It's not entirely hard. You can kind of squeeze it a little bit. So it's definitely hollow, but it's not like it's not this kind of plastic, which is the cape, where you can kind of hear it like that. Hear that? This is more of a softer PVC, if that makes sense. But I do like, can't really see it, but when it sits on the ground, what this is actually supposed to be his cape. It's very flush to the ground, like super flush. It looks really good. So this would be the inside of his cape. When you sit down, there is a piece of his cape that you apply, so that way, you know, it's hard plastic, so you can't really sit him down with his hard plastic cape, so they made it sculpted onto the seat, and then they made a separate top part for the back. And of course you get the sculpted cape here, which is sculpted on there. You can't take that off. He never takes it off. So this figure, I'm actually pretty late to the party on reviewing this figure. I know I haven't been really active this year, but I definitely had to make a video on this release because it's a figure, the character I've always wanted in S.H.Figuarts. The only articulated King Cold that is on the market before this was the Jakks Pacific one, which will net you probably $200 or more to get, and it's you know, obviously it's night and day compared to this release right here. So this is definitely the best articulated King Cold you'll find. There's plenty of statues, plenty of non-articulated King Colds out there, but in terms of articulation, this is it right here. It's a character that was very short-lived in the show. If anything, it was a cameo, you know, of all things, because he came and went pretty much in the Trunks, the future Trunks saga, right before the Android saga. But something about this character, you know, he's short-lived. He didn't have much, pretty insignificant. If you think about it, when it comes to the whole Dragon Ball Z story, he's just Frieza's father. That's why he looks just like Frieza. But he's just Frieza's father, and yeah, there's not really much about him. You don't really get to see him do much. I think he's made a cameo before in some of the flashbacks in the Broly movie or you know, some of the newer content, but we haven't really seen much of King Cold. But yet, he's still kind of a fan favorite. He's one of those characters that just kind of appeared, and he's such a cool design, such a cool looking character that I don't know, something about him that I really love. I love this character quite a bit. I was really hoping to see him in S.H.Figuarts, and here he is. So I'm really happy about that. Don't want to rant too long now, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue here. The tail is of course packed separately. This massive thing, pretty weight. I mean, it's got some good weight. I meant to say to it. Um, that's probably gonna help him stand. But you can see he stands on his own just fine. But that's without a tail. I'm sure with the tail, he's gonna be leaning back. So you might want to use that as a little stand. Once you attach the tail, we get the crossed arms option as well. I always like crossed arms options on figures. This is such a big crossed arms. You can see it's hollow though. I think that's the first time I've seen that. So we get an alternate headpiece here because some of his expressions are a little bit more expressive, like this one right here. So it causes his, I guess, quote unquote eyebrows to be raised. So you got to sculpt it differently. And there's the yelling face. Then we get the smiling smirk face, although he has two. So we got this one, and the one that's on the figure right now is a smiling face too. You can kind of see it sideways right there. The last face will be the angry face right here with the teeth. So I love the face plates a lot. A lot of options. Love the crossed arms. Good option there. The tail is articulated as you saw, and two points. 3 if you count the ball joint that goes into the back, I guess if you want to say. We do have a sword. It's worth pointing out that the sword that he comes with is indeed Trunks' sword that he borrows from him in the show. He tries to attack Trunks with it, but for whatever reason it is massive, obviously to match the scale of this figure. But even in the show, when Trunks gives him the sword, it appears bigger than what it was before. So I don't know, it's just the way it was drawn. It's not like he increased the size of the sword. It's just the way they drew it on the show. And whenever he took a hack at Trunks and Trunks caught the sword, it looked extremely large, like way bigger than what it was when Trunks had it. So just to compare the sword that actually comes with Future Trunks, the figure, you could just see the difference here. Just how, I mean, this is supposed to be the same exact sword that he hands over to King Cold. So obviously, if you were to give him this sword, it's going to be tiny, but it would make more sense, right? It's more realistic. I mean, it's been a while since I've watched that episode. I do not think that King Cold like enlarged it with his powers or something like that. I think it's just the way it was drawn. So sometimes when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, they draw characters different sizes. It has happened to Vegeta the entire series. Vegeta's been drawn super small, then he's been drawn taller, then he's small again. It's been all over the place. As alternate hands, so we get the pair of fists on the figure right now. We get open hands, pretty standard. We get the grabbing hands for the sword. And then we get these hands right here. We get this one for when he's sitting down. And you can do the pose where he is just leaning on his hand, which I'm going to do for sure. And of course the cape. I showed you the top part. This is what you attach to the back when he's sitting down. And if you don't want him sitting down, then you attach the full cape. Here's the bottom part. It comes in 2 parts. This attaches to this. Actually, I'm sorry. This is the bottom part because this is where the tail goes. So if anything, it's like this. Is it? Let me see here. That's right. So if you look at his back, you can kind of see the peg holes on the back right here. And you attach this part to the bottom. It looks weird, but this goes here because the tail will be right in the middle of that. And then this goes on top, so that's going to drape over that. So let's do that right now. Alright, so here he is on the throne. And I have to say, it actually wasn't that hard to get him on the throne looking natural. I thought it would be a little wonky, but surprisingly it is not. It fits pretty good, and I was mistaken when I was mentioning about the cape. So this piece of the cape is actually for when he is sitting down, not when he is standing up like I thought. because I saw this little gap here. I thought it was for the tail. It is for the tail, but it's only when he's sitting down. So when he is standing up, you want to use this piece. So the small piece on the top that I showed earlier, that goes on the top regardless if he's sitting down or not. That's always at the top. And then what you alternate is the bottom part. So the bottom part is either the full cape, if he's standing up, you can't sit him down with this, or this one for when he sits down. That way you can kind of, it's very subtle, but you can see the cape here, and without this piece, you won't see it here. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I have this piece here and there? It's because I have two King Colds right now. So I have one sitting down, and then I have one standing up. So here's the other one. So I can't even fit him in frame at this point. But here is the other one. So I did buy two. This figure is something I really wanted to display sitting down, and then I wanted to get another one to display, obviously, to articulate and play around with and pose him however I want. So I know, silly, most people won't understand it, but it is what it is. It's it's what I wanted to do, so I did it. Could I have just bought a statue of him sitting down? Yeah, I could have, but hey, what's the fun in that? I find this more appealing to me, and it fits in with the S.H.Figuarts collection, obviously, because it's S.H.Figuarts. So I did the same thing with Mecha Frieza. That came with an alternate torso with him getting sliced in half. I got two of him. One's displayed with him getting sliced by Trunks, and the other one is going to be displayed with this King Cold. So speaking of that, let's get him in here. So here is the Mecha Frieza, my second one, and now this is this is a nice display because this is what you want to have. Let's get him centered here. With King Cold on the throne is his son right next to him, and you can just see how small Frieza is. Now this is Frieza's smallest form, of course, but man, you can just see how big King Cold is. They really got the scale right, and that's important. So I'm glad they did that. That is, it's well done, man. If this thing was undersized, it would have been a shame. If it was oversized, it would have been a shame too. But this is perfect. He seems oversized right now, but it's because he really is that big next to this version of Frieza. So it's very nice. And then as I showed you earlier, the sculpted cape that's on the seat, that looks perfect right now. It really does look like that's his cape on, behind him. So that works out. It just seems like it was executed really, really well. It doesn't look funny, doesn't look dumb. It's not hard to get him in a sitting pose. There's not a weird gap anywhere. There's maybe a subtle gap right here. Maybe if I play around with the knee joint or the groin, I can get it more flush. But it's nothing crazy, It's definitely, adjustable with the articulation. So overall, the throne look is an A+. Man, I just couldn't really believe that they would offer the throne just like that right off the bat for a character that isn't super popular, I guess. It's not well known as most other villains. Didn't have as many appearances or screen time as other villains, of course. So the fact that they threw in the throne is very nice. They probably could have excluded it and made it cheaper, yes. But this is just fan service, man. This is... The people buying this figure are the true fans anyways, or the hardcore fans, I should say. The casual fans just want their Gokus and Vegetas and Gohans and the heroes and then the main villains. They're gonna cherry pick, skip the more obscure characters, which is respectable. I do that for other lines that I'm not super into. So I'm not bagging on that at all. That's respectable. But for the hardcore collectors, the die-hard Dragon Ball Z fans, this is fan service, pure fan service. So was the Mecha Frieza cut in half alternate torso. I mean, it's just absolute fan service. It's stuff that you would see a customizer do. You don't expect it to be an official release, and it is. I'm glad to see it. I really am glad to see it, and I hope they continue it. And they are. They're doing such a great job. This line continues to be my favorite line of my entire collection. So, anyways. Yeah, I'm really drooling over this King Cold because it truly is that great. Now, when he stands up, he's hard to get entirely in frame. I have to back it up, and then I'm out of my diorama. But it is what it is. We want to get it all in frame. There you go. This guy is magnificent. Here you can see the cape applied, so we got the full cape effect, and it does angle out a little bit because of the tail, depending on which um, slot you put it in, because the back of the cape has these little wavy slots here, so you could put it over here if you want, um, depending where you position it. But it is articulated, so you can move it up and down. Obviously, it won't hinder it too much. But of course, you could use the tail. You're gonna want to use the tail as like a stand to help him stand up. You can probably balance him somehow, but you know, it's a risk. Most characters with tails, you end up doing this anyways because it looks natural rested on the ground too. Now you see him standing up with his full cape on and everything. And speaking of the cape, I like what they did here because they sculpted the cape draped over his pauldron there, his Saiyan armor. And what's cool is these are obviously hinged, but when you go up, it continues. You see this? So like if you're gonna pose him, waving his sword around or attacking or raising his arms, the sculpt continues. So whether it's like down or up, it keeps going. Like that is so good to see. I love that they thought about that. You have both his arms up right now. You can see the sculpt continues on to it doesn't break the illusion that the cape is there. So I love that a lot. Something most people may not notice or even care about, but if they just cut it off right here and you raise his arms, it will look kind of weird. Obviously it would be cut off. So I like that they did that. So his articulation is going to be everything you would expect from an S.H.Figuarts, from his neck being the bottom of the neck and the top of the neck. You have every range of motion you can think of in S.H.Figuarts that we know and love. Even his forearms are going to rotate right here, so that's cool. Got the double jointed elbows and the bicep swivels. The arms are on the butterfly joints, so you can see how it extends out pretty far, so that allows him to swing his sword quite a bit. If you want to see the breakdown of the capes here, on the back side you see the small piece right here, and then the larger piece here that hinges as well, so that way you can rearrange the tail however you would like it to be rearranged. Leg, groin areas, everything that we expect in our S.H.Figuarts. You can see it's the newer groin, thigh swivels, double jointed knees. As far as the ankles go, our typical hinge, swivel, and rocker. The double, 2 points here at the tail as well. So nothing new or missing, I guess, for articulation here. So we're just going to move on to these size comparisons. Alright, so we saw him next to Frieza already. I'm just going to throw in a few other random characters from Dragon Ball Figuarts, so you get an idea of his height. Here we have Android 17. Someone a little taller will be Vegeta. So Vegeta standing next to King Cold, you can see how big King Cold really is. Next to Future Trunks, this is our newest 2.0 version of Future Trunks, and he stands right around his abdominal area in terms of height. So again, just showing, I think this might be the biggest Figuarts figure, not counting Grade 8 Vegeta and Porunga, of course, but like regular character, it might be the biggest. Here he's next to a Goku figure. He is a little taller than Trunks. So we're just getting taller and taller as we compare here. So those of you who have second form Frieza, he's a pretty big figure, and he is. And this is the closest look to like King Cold. When he goes second form, he's very similar in look with the double horn and his body type, So you can see his head goes around his neckline, around his neck. So obviously, proportionally, King Cold is bigger, and height-wise, he's bigger too, which he should be. So I would say King Cold is definitely the tallest or biggest regular character figure in the line so far. We have Majin Buu, but he's wide because he's Fat Buu. He's not tall. Birder is also the biggest character in the Ginyu Force. He came with one of the biggest packaging boxes too for a regular figure. Without a throne, of course. It wasn't super deep. But again, he's not as tall as King Cold at all. He's still a big figure, so if you do have Birder, you know what I'm talking about. He's a sizable figure for sure. All right, so we are gonna wrap this video up right here because I feel like this video has gone long enough. I think you've seen everything you need to see about this figure. Again, a little late to the party on this review, but I really did want to make a video on it, and I'm really enjoying this figure quite a bit. I think he's a must-have for sure. Of course, if you're a casual collector or fan of the show, I guess you don't need this guy, right? You know, he's pretty expensive because he does come with a throne. He's a web exclusive and all. He's not cheap, but I would still recommend this figure a lot because it's just a presence in the collection for sure. It's such a nice figure. That's all I got to say without repeating myself too much. So I'm going to play around with him a little bit more, probably put the sword in his hand, get some poses in, and just have fun with it. So with that said, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a like, comment, all that stuff. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.